Welcome everyone to another episode of For the Fans podcast. Whoop, hold on. I knew there was an audio somewhere. Okay, now we're good. There was a slight background audio, me trying to monitor myself, and it's definitely working.
That was
So,
anticlimactic.
I'm sorry.
Welcome
Okay,
everyone.
it's been a really long day for me so far.
That was anticlimactic, kind of like the Titans and Broncos game.
Oh yeah, Titans and Broncos was a very rough game, but we have a whole bunch of stuff for you guys this week, and we're changing things up a little bit. So let's start with some news going on. McKay, start us off with some news.
Okay, we're gonna try and go through this as quickly as possible, but it's stuff that we feel like is the need. The NFL has threatened to discipline any coaches for failure to wear their face masks. Now, it's kind of come out recently that a lot of this is directed at Rams coach Sean McVay because on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, you could see Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy on this side. He's wearing his mask for the entire game. But over on the Rams side, Sean McVay, man, he's got that down on his chin and everything, and the NFL wasn't pleased about that. So they had to send that out there again, and Sean McVay had to apologize. They're just going to kind of need to figure out exactly what he's going to do there. Because obviously he doesn't want to wear a face shield because that did not work for Andy Reid. We kind of already – there's plenty of memes that have gone about that, about how you don't want to wear a face shield.
I mean, it seemed to work out for Andy Reid just fine when they played the Texans, so maybe it's a good thing.
I've seen the memes. Maybe he was just drawing all of his plays from the fog on his face shield. I don't know.
I did see that one. That one was pretty good.
Yep.
Moving on from that, Colts running back Marlon Mack suffers an Achilles tear, so he is out for the season. I had him on my fantasy team. I immediately dropped him, and I'm working on trying to get somebody else.
Yeah. Don't go for Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, no. I'm going for Hines from the Colts as well.
Because
he
the reason we bring that up is Marlon Mack is not the only running back we have to mention here, because Le'Veon Bell is also injured and has been placed on IR after week 1. So we may not be seeing much of him either.
And then, McKay, I'll let you do our last little bullet point that we have on here. I'm going to add one more once we deliver that last one.
Gotcha. Well, the other one that we need to talk about, just going over real quick, is a wide receiver for the Bears. Allen Robinson is apparently unhappy with the fact that they haven't reached a contract extension for him yet, and he's likely going to ask to be traded if they can't come to a resolution on that extension. He has not officially asked to be traded, but that seems to be kind of the consensus that's happening there. That's something that we're definitely going to need to monitor because, honestly, Allen Robinson was probably the best offensive player for that lackluster Bears offense last season. So hopefully Bears organization can kind of figure that out. Otherwise, it's going to be a longer season than we already think it is for Bears fans.
Including you.
Including me.
To add on to that news, another wide receiver that's been rumored to be seeking a trade is Odell Beckham Jr. He's apparently not happy with the Browns, and Browns are supposedly trying to shop him around a little bit. So keep an eye on that. The last little bit of news is that we came back, and we were super excited to come back, and we're back on Tuesdays. Well, that's being changed. We're now going to be moving to Saturdays just because McKay had some work things come up, and now Saturdays are his day off, and so we figured that's going to be the easiest day for us to do this.
I live a crazy life. Let's just leave it at that. I work 3 jobs, I'm going to school, and I have to take care of a newborn. It's a party, man.
Oh, yeah, so just so we have both of us here, because it's more fun with both of us here, we're just shifting around, and it honestly works fine for me, no problem at all.
Definitely, yep. So stay tuned in case there are any more changes. Hopefully there's not, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. McKay, do you want to move on to our new topic of the week, or do you want to go on to our prediction from last week?
I think we need to go with our new topic first because that's basically going to cover what has happened within this past week.
Sounds good to me. Kick us off.
So for everyone here, we have a new segment that's basically going to be our new recap for our prediction and for results from the previous week's games. We call it the wows and the woes. So rather than going through all of our predictions and basically every little detail of every game, we're going to try and speed it up a little bit. We're going to talk about these really high moments, these impressive moments and surprises from the past week, as well as the letdowns and disappointing moments. So, Shane, let's start off with the wow, shall we?
All right. First one, the week titled No New Receiver, No Problem. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers were kicking the Vikings' butt, and it mainly came because of, what was that receiver's name again? McKay, do you happen to know?
I can't remember. Was it Devontae Adams?
It is Devontae Adams, but I mean, in all honesty, like, the whole Packers team kind of showed up a little bit, but Devontae Adams kind of came in with a beast of a game that night.
Yeah, from what I've been seeing, I might need to jump over to NBA after a while. Sorry, got a little caught up there with the Eastern Conference Finals. Even the Celtics are going into overtime. Anyway, all right, I'm back on track. Back with football. But the biggest thing that I was seeing is the fact that Aaron Rodgers was just being phenomenal with his pass game during the game against the Vikings. He has all the weapons he needs to succeed. He was throwing to plenty of his different receivers, and they were just lighting the Vikings up. It's not to say that the Vikings had a bad game. If the Vikings were probably playing any other team, they might have been pretty good. But, man, Aaron Rodgers took it to him in that game. And I think, Shane, the thing we need to talk about is, did all that speculation in the offseason about him being unhappy, did that awake a beast in him? Did that awake the sleeping dragon? Because I think it might have.
I think they might have poked the sleeping bear, and he has woken up from hibernation and is out for blood. Like, this Packers team is looking kind of scary so far.
Yeah, I am. Shane, I remember we talked earlier about, like, way back before, even before COVID-19 had put everything on hold, about how we were thinking, it's next year, the NFC North is probably going to be done. It's probably going to be the Minnesota Vikings. And then as we kind of got closer, we were like, yeah, it might actually still be the Packers. And I'm kind of glad that we made that switch because, wow.
Yeah, I will say, Packers basically had the Vikings all the way up until the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is when the Vikings came alive and they scored 24 points in that one quarter, but Packers scored 14. So that fourth quarter was pretty fun to watch.
Absolutely. That's it as far as it goes for that. Our first little section. Amazing game for the Packers and for Aaron Rodgers, but he's not the only quarterback who had a really, really good first week. Our next one is called Who Needs the 12th Man? Well, Russell Wilson had a near perfect QB rating as the Seahawks plowed the Falcons down in Atlanta. That was just, come on, the Seahawks were just showing up, and the Falcons, who we were kind of thinking might be able to be a decent team, they were not having a good game against the Seahawks.
I'm just going to read Russell Wilson because we talked about him having a near perfect QB rating. This is his stats just from this game as far as passing. 31 for 35 for 322 yards and 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. That is an amazing game.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of funny. My boss at one of my jobs, he's a Seahawks fan. It's kind of funny. He's one of those Seahawks fans where it's like he understands the game of football, but he doesn't really pay attention too much to his team. He's just like, oh, yeah, Seahawks or something like that. So he decides to turn on the game at one point, and he hears like the announcer say, Russell Wilson now 12 for 12 on passes, and he was like, what?
Yeah, I have a coworker who's a big fan of Seahawks. He's pretty happy as well.
So that was another one. Do you think Russell Wilson is a legitimate MVP candidate, especially when you have Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes up there?
I would say for sure. I feel like he was an MVP candidate last season as well when Lamar won it. So I think we're starting to see this evolution of some of the old top 5 QBs are still hanging around, still fighting in, but this new generation is coming in. They're coming strong.
Yeah, and I would say out of we've got these new quarterbacks like Jackson, like Mahomes, who are looking real strong. But you have some of these older quarterbacks who have been there for a bit. Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, man, they're still scary. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, but let's move on to the he's small but he is feisty. And that is Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals stun the 49ers. That honestly blew my mind that the 49ers lost that game.
Yeah, I think this was kind of one of those big moments that everyone kind of took a step back and they were like, "Wait, what? That happened?" This was one of those surprising moments where it's like the Arizona Cardinals show that they can probably tango with all of the other powerhouse NFC West teams. And Kyler Murray, coupled with DeAndre Hopkins as that big receiver that had a really big game with Kyler Murray and their impressive pass game, it was enough to kind of just make the Niners go, "Oh, whoops. Oh, yep, and we blew that one."
See, I'm like kind of heads or tails on this one. I think the Cardinals are going to be able to compete a little bit, but I'm also just looking, and it's really hard to see how the 49ers just lost this game. I will say DeAndre Hopkins going to the Cardinals is what the Cardinals probably needed to get that surge in their offense.
I would agree. I think another thing is too, and we will talk about this when we a little bit later down on our highlights. But there's a little bit more to how the Niners basically fell apart against the Cardinals. But we'll go into that later.
They choked like they did in the Super Bowl.
Oh, geez. Okay, not that bad. Let's be honest. Anyway,
not that bad, but they still choked at the end.
Yeah, for sure. The next segment that we have, we've titled it, "Wait, did Washington win?" This is honestly one of the biggest surprises of the week. It was an amazing comeback by the controversial Washington football team, now under first-year head coach Ron Rivera. His impressive defensive front gets the dub for Washington against the Eagles team that has struggled with a variety of injuries. And Shane, what do we got to say about this? Pretty wild. Washington actually came out with a win against the Philadelphia Eagles, which we were saying before looked like they were going to be a pretty decent team.
Yeah, you know, I'm just like, I'm really confused on how Washington actually won this game because I'm just looking at the stats between the two teams. I'm not going to bore everybody with that. But Carson Wentz had a bad night. I will say that was probably the Washington's like biggest reason why they won, because I think Carson Wentz got sacked like 8 different times in that one game, and he threw for 2 interceptions. You can't really win games when that is happening to you. As far as Washington, as if they're going to be these big, strong players, it's still up in there. I still feel like the NFC East is probably the weakest division in the NFL right now. But good on Washington. They stunned me for sure.
Well, Shane, it is a little weird if you look at stats on ESPN right now to see that the top-ranked team in the NFC East is the Washington football team. They are the only team from the division that actually won their game last week.
Which is so sad.
It's odd. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll go over some of these. Like, I think one fun one that I think we're talking about later is gonna be in our woe section. But let's move on. Let's move on to rushing touchdown from a Pats QB. Cam Newton.
Don't see that very often.
Yeah. Well, I think even Brady got a rushing touchdown in Tampa.
Yeah, I don't know, man. When I saw the Cam Newton was being able to rush in for these touchdowns and kind of do what he did, during his MVP season, and he's doing that in the system of, the Patriots, who were very often in the past few years have had Tom Brady, who's not the rushing touchdown quarterback type. That was interesting to see.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
Cam Newton and the Patriots, in his debut, they got the win.
I mean, I will say, the funny thing is, so I really like this title because we're like rushing touchdown from a Pats QB. Not only did their current QB get a rushing touchdown and beat the Dolphins, but their former QB and Tom Brady down in Tampa also got a rushing touchdown in Tampa.
It's and turn over a new leaf.
This season so far, I have no idea what to expect. Speaking of not knowing what to expect, let's move on to our next topic.
Our next topic, Trubisky's wild fourth quarter. Let's put it to you this way, Shane. I actually had to work during
no.
So I only was able to catch maybe the first 45 minutes was just a lot of back and forth with field goals. But long story short, I checked my phone at one point. It was the end of the third quarter, and the Lions had a 21-point lead. It was 23-6. And, of course, I thought to myself, well, okay, I guess the Bears are tanking for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what the plan is here. I was pretty beside myself.
Yeah.
And then I checked my phone again, and I noticed they had made 2 touchdowns, and time was running out on the clock. Then I checked my phone again, and I realized, wait a second, the Bears have the lead now. Now, obviously, we know the Bears won, and this is because of Trubisky's crazy fourth quarter where he threw 3 touchdowns against kind of a beat-up Lions secondary, but it was all in the fourth to go 1-0. Let's just put it this way. Before we heap any praise on Trubisky, because I don't really want to, let's also talk about how close the game was. Because the Lions could have easily won this game if that rookie, he had the ball in his hands in the end zone, and he dropped it. And that was just terribly disappointing for that Lions team.
Yeah.
But it's like same old line, honestly. They just blow it there. Yes, it was cool that Trubisky made 3 touchdowns, and that was pretty impressive after, how badly he has been playing recently. But I don't know if that is really going to change anything. You know what I mean? I think it was just kind of a fluke.
It's very interesting because you guys were getting kind of beat up the first 3 quarters. And that last quarter, you guys shut out the Lions, and then Mitchell Trubisky just surged past everybody.
Definitely. And I understand that Mitch, he kind of needs to get his confidence going. And sure, pulling something like that is great, but it was against the Lions team. Now, that's not to say that, it's never going to happen again, because looking ahead, the next 3 teams that the Bears play, Trubisky could easily do the same thing to them. So we'll just have to see what happens there.
Yeah, until you guys run into the Packers or the Vikings.
Or the Saints are not far down the line either. And so are the Buccaneers. So, anyway.
Anyway, that brings us to our last wow, which is Minshew Mania returns. My goodness,
yeah.
I am so happy about that. The reason why I am happy is because he had a near perfect passing game. He went 19 for 20 with only 1 drop, and that came from the rookie wide receiver, which could have been caught, but it was still like a really close one. Like, I don't blame too much on the receiver, because pretty soon after there were 3 people hitting him at the same time. But all in all, Jaguars maintained composure, and we were able to beat the Colts, who have been often talked about as the front runner of the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. And we're expected to completely blow the Jaguars out of the water this past Sunday.
I would say this was a very impressive moment, specifically because so many people had ruled the Jaguars out for the season. That basically you guys were just going to lay down and die this season. Yep. And then obviously that's not what happened.
Nope. And
even I at one point was thinking to myself, I think the Jaguars are just going to lay down and die this season.
I think everybody was. I still had hope because so many people have their jobs on the line, so I feel like they don't want to lay down and die because people don't want to lose their job. I will say, though, Phillip Rivers did really solid with an actual offensive line behind, like, protecting him, because he hasn't really had that with this with the LA Chargers or the Chargers when they were in San Diego. But he still threw for 2 interceptions, even though he had a really good game with a lot of yards. He threw those 2 interceptions, which I think costed him, and he almost threw a third, but a flag overturned it.
I think for this one, we'll just have to be interesting to see, first of all, if Rivers can kind of overcome that on the Colts side, and also if there continues to be improvement from the Jaguars even after this cool win that they got at the beginning of the season.
Which this Sunday is going to be a battle for the AFC South lead right now.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about that later, but let's move on to the woes.
We're going to go over 2 woes real quickly that we've kind of covered them a little bit, but we still need to mention a little bit. The first of which, of course, is the Niners losing to the Cardinals. Their struggle on offense may have been the biggest blame for their loss to the Cardinals. It kind of seemed that like Jimmy Garoppolo was struggling a little bit. There were some plays that got a little messed up, and it just kind of went to the Cardinals' advantage. And we kind of discussed this a little bit earlier. Is this a sign of things to come, though? Shane, do we think that this is an actual Super Bowl hangover and the Niners are struggling, or do you think it's just it happened, it was an accident? I think the Niners are going to be fine.
I'm very torn. This is the first game of the season, but the 49ers, it looked rough for them, and I'm not saying that just because I think the Cardinals were bad. I still don't have full faith in Kyler Murray, me personally. I still don't think he is as good of a QB as people think that he is. I think he has the potential to be that, but do I currently think he is? No. I think the 49ers might be in a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover, but it's very possible they could just drop the ball this week.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't think this is like just a sign of, oh, wow, okay, the Niners are really going to struggle and they're going to miss the playoffs. I still think that they're still going to be okay. They'll rebound from this. We'll just have to see what happens from here on out.
All right. Let's move on to Brady's bad day, which is the Buccaneers losing to the Saints, and the Buccaneers offense struggled They struggled for a good portion of that game against the New Orleans Saints, and Brady throwing 2 picks? Wasn't one a pick six?
One of them being a pick 6.
Yep. Which is kind of funny, but anyways, all in all, like we have been talking about in the offseason, they had Tristan Wirfs, they have Mike Evans, they have Chris Godwin, they have Rob Gronkowski, they have Leonard Fournette now. Like, they have all these fairly big names and all of these offensive weapons, but they didn't look too good on offense.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I'm noticing is that, defense, it was like, okay, this is pretty good. But offense, I don't know if they're just struggling to get used to the new system or anything like that, but it was not a good day for the Buccaneers offense, and it'll be interesting to see if Brady is able to rebound from this, if things are going to be a little different, and he's not quite used to working in Tampa Bay. I think the thing we need to keep in mind, Shane, though, before we really make any judgment calls based off of Week 1, is there was no preseason going into this because of the pandemic, and a lot of teams that during their first Week 1 matchups played sloppy. And I think the Buccaneers were definitely one of them.
I will say, no preseason. I think that's very interesting because there has been talk about like shortening preseason or getting rid of preseason altogether because some really, really big names like Tom Brady would come out, maybe throw like 1 or 2 passes and then call it a day in the preseason. But we also got to remember, and I'm taking the other side, not necessarily like no preseason, but they went up against a good New Orleans Saints team, and I think that was just another big reason it's kind of hard to gauge the Buccaneers when they go up against a really solid Saints team that has good offense and good defense.
Even though actually Drew Brees had kind of a bad game, actually.
He didn't have his greatest game, I will say that, but I still gotta say the Saints, I think, are probably the NFC South front runners.
I still agree with that as well. I don't really see Tampa Bay challenging that. I'm going to be honest. I don't.
I don't think many people do.
Next one that we'll cover really quickly. Oh, yeah. The next segment that we're just going to, or the next piece that we're going to cover really quickly, we've already discussed it a little bit. Carson Wentz and the Eagles, they failed to beat the struggling Washington team. There's a lot of injuries on the Eagles side. Carson Wentz didn't have a good game. That's one of our woes, is that the Eagles just dropped the ball and it wasn't an impressive game. I think we can kind of just say that and move on, don't you think, Shane?
Yeah, we covered it with the wow for the
Washington.
Yeah. Next, we got We Dem Boys, with Cowboys having a lot of issues, a lot of very interesting things happened during this entire game with questionable pass interference, questionable face masks, and basically everything led up to a last-minute loss to the LA Rams.
Yeah. Another thing, too, that really bugged me is Mike McCarthy going for it on a 4th down when they could have just kicked the field goal and tied it up with the Rams, and they didn't. Long story short, Shane, this gives me great pleasure to say this, but even with more pieces on offense, even with a new coach, I think we might still have the same old Cowboys, and I love it.
But here's the fun thing I want to throw in there. So the past while, it's basically been a battle between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Well, now we got the Washington football team on the rise. Do you think Washington might be the front runner in this terrible division?
No.
No?
Oh, I really don't. I'm going to be honest with you. I need to see more if I'm really going to be able to make that call. I still believe that the Cowboys are the front runners for that division.
Okay.
But they're just not as impressive as everyone is saying they are. Because I know when I saw ESPN publish a piece about who they thought was going to the Super Bowl this year, their pick at the end was the Chiefs versus the Cowboys. And now I'm saying, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
I don't see that happening. But let's move on to, speaking of same old Cowboys, we got the same old Browns. With Cleveland, Baker Mayfield, I feel like cannot catch a break. Throws a pick in his first drive. OBJ not really doing anything. And honestly, they kind of just got blown out of the water by the Baltimore Ravens.
Let's just leave it with this. 2020 has been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of craziness, but some things never change. And one of those things is the Cleveland Browns still being terrible.
Feels good. Browns are doing bad. Cowboys are doing bad. It feels good.
Yep. Other things we're going to bring up just really quickly. We'll touch on this just really quickly because there's other parts that were like, this was a woe, but not a huge woe. Stephen Gostkowski had a real rough night with his kicking last night. He's a new kicker for the Titans. He missed 3 field goal attempts, but he nailed the game winner. He joins legendary controversial kicker Cody Parkey, who double doinked with the Bears as the only kicker who missed 3 kicks, but still won the game. It was a rough game for Gostkowski. I hope he can rebound, but let's just leave that. That needs to go down as a woe, even though it ended up having a positive, happy ending for him.
And I will say, the Titans barely beat the Broncos 14-16. If he had hit all of those field goals, they would have won like 25-14, which I think is a lot of what more people expected. But yikes!
Yikes is right. Another thing that I think we need to talk about, yikes-wise, is some really weird ejections that happened during Week 1. The Detroit Lions Collins ejected for headbutting a ref, which was really weird. And then Titans Evans ejected for punching another player in the head.
It is definitely a strange time right now.
Yeah. Anyway, that is our wows and our woes from Week 1.
And to kind of carry over Week 1, so we've been talking, because we decided to do wows and woes instead of going over every single game. And figuring since we still do our predictions, we're like, well, we need to incorporate our predictions somehow. So me and McKay have come together, and we have decided that we're going to make a mini competition between the two of us to see who wins the week better and then who wins the entire season better. Right now, both me and him are saying at 10-6 for the Week 1.
Yep, so that just means, Shane, maybe this next week will determine who pulls ahead with the lead.
It will. Because last week we even had a few mismatches where you picked the Colts, I picked the Jaguars. That's like the first one off the top of my head. There was one or two others I can remember that we were like kind of split on. And we are split a little bit on this week as well.
We are. With that, let's dive into our predictions for Week 2. We're going to try and keep this fast, Shane. I'm going to put a timer on us. We only have 2 minutes to go through each game so that we don't take too long on stuff. Let's go through it, starting with our Thursday night game, which is going to be kind of a whiff, in my opinion, but the Bengals versus the Browns.
I'm not excited for this Thursday night game. I feel like they honestly should just not have played on a Thursday night during a primetime game. I'm saying 21-17 Bengals. I think Joe Burrow's going to bounce back after his loss to the Chargers from last week.
I am saying 23-16, but I'm going with the Browns because I feel like the Browns are going to have an easier time against the Bengals than they do against a team like the Rams offensively. I think the Browns defense will be able to hold Joe Burrow back and kind of make it a little more difficult for the Bengals offense, whereas they couldn't do that against Lamar Jackson and his offense. That's kind of my reasoning behind that. Do I think that the offense for the Browns is going to be good? No, I don't, but I think it's going to be enough to get past Cincinnati.
I think it's going to be a close game, but it's not going to be a very fun game.
Yep, I would agree. Well, hey, that only took a minute, so let's go on to the next one.
Next one you should be excited about, Giants versus Bears. Honestly, I feel like you guys have it very easy this week, so I'm saying 27-17, the Bears. The Bears.
My prediction is a little bit closer. I said 26-21 with the Bears taking the dub. That I say that is because I feel like the offense is still going to have issues, Trubisky especially. I would hope that the defense would be able to be a little less lackadaisical in this round against the Giants. The Giants did manage to kind of put a bit of a fight on against the Steelers, which gives me a little cause to worry as a Bears fan. But I still think the Bears are going to be able to pull out this win in the end, and I think a lot of it is going to come down to the defense kind of managing to pick Daniel Jones apart, more so than once again, the offense being able to do their job. I guess it's something similar to what I said with the Browns. I think the defense will be able to pull through and do more of an effort than the offense will.
I just have one question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's going to be a lot like last week where Trubisky's going to come alive in the fourth quarter and then you guys are just going to steal a game away from the New York Giants?
I actually want to say yes to that because I feel like Trubisky, he doesn't really get the job done when he doesn't have something to worry about. So in the case of the Lions, he was like, "Oh, let me do all this crazy stuff because we're super behind and it looks great," and he runs on instinct and he looks like a really good quarterback. But if he doesn't have those that mentality there, he doesn't have that motivation, then it's not going to get done. So I do believe that. I do believe that the Giants will have the lead for a while, and then the Bears will surge ahead at the end.
Okay, let's move on to Rams versus the Eagles. I feel like this could actually be an interesting matchup, but I'm still going to give the edge to the Rams with them winning 24-14.
I said something a little similar. I said 27-16 with the Rams taking the win. I think the Rams are a decent football team. I think they're going to do well. I think they're going to definitely be able to compete for the NFC West, and I think they're going to win this one specifically because I feel like the Eagles are battered by injuries right now, and I think their confidence level is going to be a little bit down. Carson Wentz is especially after that embarrassing loss to Washington. And I just see the Rams as the superior team in this matchup, even though it'll be played in Philadelphia.
All right, let's move on to Falcons and Cowboys. We're actually split on this one, so this is one of our splits. I'm saying 30-21, the Atlanta Falcons. I think they showed a lot of strong points last week, and I think they're just going to continue to build that against the Cowboys, so I personally feel like the Cowboys struggled a little bit more against the LA Rams last week.
Right. For me, I have it being 31-25 with the Cowboys taking the win. And I know this is, maybe it's more part of my whole, if I'll jinx the Cowboys, you know what I mean, Shane?
You're trying to get that trend back?
We're bringing that back from last season. But no, the reason that I am saying that, though, is because Cowboys, I feel like they did have the opportunity to win against the Rams. They just made some really silly mistakes, and they will rebound from that. The Falcons showed a lot of promise, but it was against a really, really strong Seahawks team. It might be a little bit different, you're right, against the Cowboys, who just don't seem as tough as that Seahawks team does, but I still feel like the Cowboys will be able to beat the Falcons in this matchup.
Oh yeah, I can honestly see this game going either way. I think it's going to be honestly a really fun, good game to watch.
I would agree.
So let's move on to an NFC South matchup. We got the Panthers versus the Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I'm going with the Panthers on this one. I know they didn't win this last week. I'm saying 31-20 Panthers. I'm very interested to see how this one's going to play out, and I think this will help determine on how good we think the Buccaneers really are.
I would agree. If the Panthers are able to pull out this win, then it will obviously show that they were all just a bunch of smoke and mirrors in the offseason. But however, my prediction is 31-17 with the Buccaneers winning. I'm thinking that they are going to end up rebounding from this, from whatever ended up happening against the Saints, because the Panthers are not as good as the Saints. I feel like with the Panthers, it's still going to take a little bit of time for them to really get into to really get going there. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I think the biggest thing that's going to happen is that Rob does he go by Robbie Anderson or Robert Anderson? I don't know. I think it's Robbie. Robbie Anderson had a pretty good game last week, so I think it's going to come down to basically how well Bridgewater is accurate and how strong Christian McCaffrey plays that game.
I would agree.
But I think that's about it for our Panthers and Buccaneers. Next, we got the 49ers versus the Jets.
This is not much of a competition, and I don't think this will be one of those games where we go back and review it in our wows and our woes next week. My prediction is 34-10 with the Niners taking the win. I think the Niners are just going to blow the Jets out of the water. There's just not much to say about the New York Jets team.
I'm saying 27-13.
Yep.
But so I will say I don't see this being a wow, but I do see it potentially being a woe if somehow the Jets upset the 49ers, because then I think it's safe to say the 49ers are in a Super Bowl hangover.
Yes, that would be true, but I doubt it.
Oh, yeah. I doubt it very much so, but we're moving on from that. I feel like this is going to be an easy win for the 49ers. Next, we have the Broncos versus the Steelers, which I think is actually going to probably be one of the most exciting games of the week.
I would agree.
Here's my prediction. I'm saying 24-21. Steelers take it, possibly in overtime. I think this might go to overtime, if anything.
I would agree with you on that. My prediction that I'm going to have on here is 23-21 with the Broncos winning it. However, Shane, I'm gonna be a little bold here.
Okay.
I'm gonna say maybe in this case it does go into overtime, but it results in a draw.
Oh, that's brutal. That's very bold.
Because I feel like these two teams are actually somewhat evenly matched. I feel like the Steelers with Roethlisberger, yeah, it's great. He won, and they're coming back into it, and they look great. But I also feel like the Broncos, they've got a lot of promise this season too, and things just didn't really go their way against the Titans when it probably could have.
I will say, Drew Lock, he's been impressing me so far.
I would agree. Not only that, I caught a little bit of the Titans and Broncos game, and I think one thing that could have been a really big game changer in that game is one of the rookie defenders for the Broncos caught an interception from Ryan Tannehill, and it probably could have totally shifted the momentum where the Broncos could have scored, but it was called back because another Broncos defender did unnecessary roughness. So it ended up being negated.
You can't do that. Also, the Broncos are missing their leading defensive man in Von Miller.
It's true. But I feel like if any game was going to go to a tie this week, it would be this one.
I can agree with that. Let's move on to the Jaguars versus the Titans. I'm personally going to hopefully enjoy this one. I don't know. I think it's going to be close. I'm sticking with my team on this one. I'm saying 27-24 Jaguars. I think the run defense has improved, and I feel like the Titans only have Derrick Henry as a legit threat as a runner. Outside of him,
I would agree.
But outside of him, they don't really have many running backs. Whereas we just played the Indianapolis Colts, who I feel like have one of the strongest running back rooms, and they were able to get some breakaways at some points, but for the most part, when it was needed, the run defense was able to stop. And I think as long as they can stop Derrick Henry and the run, I think the Jaguars might be able to walk away with this one.
I will say this. My prediction is 24-21, but with the Titans winning, biggest thing that could be an issue for the Jaguars offense, for Gardner Minshew, for that offensive line would be Jadeveon Clowney, who is playing as a defender for the Titans. My opinion on this goes is the reason that it's going to be close, and it could go either way, where I'm with you, Shane. I could see the Jaguars winning this, again, it's a divisional matchup. It's not a case where it's like, oh, no, the Titans always beat the Jaguars. No, it's not that case. The Jaguars beat the Titans last year at one point. It was 1-1 when it came to the series between those two. It could go either way in this one, and that's also why I believe it's going to be a very close game. But you said the Jaguars will be the ones who end up taking the win. I'm just going to say the opposite and say the Titans win.
Oh, by the way, so to backtrack a little bit to the Broncos and the Steelers, Duckmaster did chime in. He said 27-14 Steelers because the Broncos lost Von Miller and they struggle against the Titans. He's going for a bigger spread between them.
He is, and I can see that why. I mean, the Steelers are his team. I think the biggest thing, and I brought this up earlier, again, the reason why, yes, even though the Broncos are without Von Miller, I still believe that potential is there because Drew Lock showed promise, and I think things against the Titans just didn't go their way with the Broncos because of that example, case in point, that example that I shared earlier, where they could have got that interception that would have led to a score if it weren't for that unnecessary roughness.
Yeah, like I said, we definitely got some what I think are going to be some very close things. We got the Broncos and Steelers, which I think are going to be close. We got the Jaguars and Titans, which I think we both agree is going to be a close game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to what we think not so close game, which is the Packers versus the Lions.
Oh, and the reason that we are saying this is not going to be a close game is not because we think the Lions suck. I think Matt Stafford I think he's pretty good. The reason that we don't think this is going to go well is because of a guy named Aaron Rodgers.
You know, I disagree with you. I think it's because the Lions are just bad. I'm going to be bold with it. I think the Lions, I think Matt Stafford is good, but I don't think he has enough talent around him to be a huge factor. And they even drafted Jeffrey Okudah really early in that draft, and he
was injured.
True. But I was like, I'm very interested to see on how he's going to play and when he's able to come in and play.
Yes, definitely. But as far as our predictions go for here, I said 44-16 with the Packers taking the win. Yours was not far off from that.
No, I said 38-10. I think the Packers are just going to blow them out, kind of like how the Ravens did with the Browns.
Let's just we could probably move on from that one. We just know the Packers are going to win this one.
Let's move on to Bills versus Dolphins. This one is going to be a fun AFC East matchup, and I think it's going to be pretty close. I'm saying 21-17. The Buffalo Bills are going to edge out and take it.
Yeah, I would agree. Mine is a little different. I said 24-20, but we both agreed the Bills are going to win. It's going to be close because it's a divisional matchup, and I think the Dolphins are going to be able to give the Bills a bit of a fight, but I still see the Bills as the legitimate frontrunners of the AFC East. It doesn't matter what Cam Newton did with the Patriots. He did it against the Dolphins. I will not say anything on the matter until the Patriots play the Bills. And in this case, the Bills are playing the Dolphins, so it doesn't matter. They're going to win.
Okay, let's move on then to Vikings versus Colts. I feel like this was a pretty easy one for me, Cole. I'm saying 30-17 Vikings, especially since the Colts struggle against the Jaguars, who everybody was counting as the worst team in the NFL, and they kind of got stunned a little bit, and I think they just don't know how to recover, especially now that Marlon Mack is gone, who was going to be their big workhorse.
I agree with you from the basis of the Colts. They're struggling a little bit. I feel like my prediction is 27-13, Vikings winning. I do feel like maybe Rivers will kind of catch on, and with that, that'll mean, in this case, maybe it's a little bit more of a score that's going to come, a little bit of a higher score from the Colts, but I feel like the Vikings still played pretty well against the Packers. It's the Packers. The Packers are not the same as the Colts. The Vikings are going to have a good game.
No, I can agree with that. So let's move on to Washington versus the Cardinals.
For this one, I said it would be 28-17. I have the Cardinals winning. It's not to say that I believe that Washington's win last week was a fluke. I don't believe it was. I think there's some legitimate skill on that team, on that Washington football team, that We're starting to see come to life. But I am expecting a bigger show from Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins.
I agree with you in the fact that I think the Cardinals are going to win. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I'm still impressed with how Washington was able to just kind of destroy Carson Wentz and the Eagles' offensive line, which I will say, the Eagles' offensive line has been talked about as being one of, I think top 10 offensive lines in the NFL right now, and to let their quarterback get sacked 8 different times, I think this Washington team might be a little too much for Kyler Murray to handle. But I think he's going to be able to handle it, especially because he's got DeAndre Hopkins. I just think it's going to be more of a struggle, so I'm saying 24-20 with the Cardinals taking it.
Hey, I can see that. I can totally get on board with that.
Washington, they're doing some things right now.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
All right, let's move on to what I think is going to be one of the more fun matchups for the Sunday night. It's going to be, we got the Ravens versus the Texans, which I think this is going to be, because everyone's, I think, the top 2 teams are talked about, where it's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be fun if those two clash heads in the playoffs, but I think the real test to see who might be better than who is this Sunday, because Texans just came off with the loss versus the Chiefs. They're coming in to face the Ravens. I'm saying the Ravens are going to take it 31-20.
Something similar on my end. 34-27 with the Ravens. I think it's going to be a bit of a closer game. I think the Texans will be able to rebound somewhat, and Deshaun Watson will realize he's got to put a little bit more on his shoulders in order to carry this team, because the defense was just not getting the job done against Patrick Mahomes and his offense. And let's just be honest, Lamar Jackson is just as capable in a different sense with his offense. And so I'm hoping that it'll just be a little bit more of a back and forth of a scoring fest, but the Ravens will still win it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly, because you and me, we watch Gridiron Heights posted by Bleacher Report like every week. I'm thinking of last year when it was like Deshaun Watson's like, you may have won the battle, but you have not won the war. I think this might be winning the war if the Ravens pull ahead.
Yeah, I would agree.
So let's move on to an AFC West showdown. We got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the LA Chargers.
Is this really a showdown, though, Shane?
No. It really isn't. I'm sorry. Chiefs are going to kind of mop the floor with the Chargers, who I feel like are going to look a little lost. They played an easy Bengals team, what I consider an easy Bengals team, last week, and barely won it. So I think the Chiefs are just going to come out and blow them out of the water, winning 37-13.
My prediction is 31-10. I don't know if we need to say much more on this, Shane. We know that the Chiefs are probably going to throw down on this Chargers team.
And the Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champions, they're going to be riding that high wave for a while.
I would agree.
So let's move on to a more interesting matchup. Patriots versus the Seattle Seahawks.
It's our Sunday night matchup. Almost like a little rematch of Super Bowl 49. Shane, we're similar in our score predictions here.
We are very similar in this one.
I said
go ahead.
33-20 Seahawks.
I said 31-23 Seahawks. The Seahawks just looked way too good last week.
I would agree. And although, Cam Newton did cool stuff and everything like that, it was against the Dolphins team. The Seahawks are a complete and total different animal. Literally. It's not a Dolphin bird now.
Okay. Moving on from that bad joke. Wow, you really have become a dad.
Shut up.
We got the Saints versus the Raiders, which I think it's going to be very brief. I think it's obvious that the New Orleans Saints are going to win. I'm saying they're going to win 37-17.
And my prediction is 28-13 with the Saints winning. I'm more just looking forward to seeing how Allegiant Stadium looks. Because I thought the Rams Stadium, I thought SoFi looked pretty cool. So I'm interested to see how Allegiant Stadium looks.
I think that's going to be the biggest highlight of Monday is looking at the brand new Vegas Stadium for the Raiders.
And seeing John Gruden pull some wily BS. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to stay tuned and watch this one and keep an eye out for it.
Yep. Those are our predictions.
Yep, that's all of our predictions. So I think we can move on to our next topic.
This is a little something we want to bring up to keep an eye on throughout the season. See if any of these changes end up happening mid-season or at the end of the season. Before this is what we're going to talk about before we go to our For the Fun trivia night. Shane, this segment is called Coaches on the Line. These are the coaches of the NFL teams that are on this list. We have reason to believe that they may be fired if their season goes downhill. Let's discuss why. We have these listed in order of who we believe is the most at risk. Our number one candidate, who we feel like if this season doesn't go well, he's out, is Matt Patricia, the coach for the Detroit Lions. Why, Shane?
You know, I feel like it's just become a joke where the Lions have just been the new Browns in the sense of the Lions have just been bad for a very, very long time. Like, I think the last time the Lions that I remember they were good was like back in 2013, 2014, somewhere around there when they were actually like talked about doing decent, and it's been like 5-6 years since then.
Yes. I long story short, we're just not seeing anything impressive from the Detroit Lions. I remember seeing something along the lines of when they were interviewing Matt Patricia about the loss and basically saying that Patricia does not know how to make good decisions to close a game. He went on this whole thing saying, "Well, in Super Bowl 49 against the Seahawks, I made the decision that led to the infamous Malcolm Butler interception." And long story short, analysts just laughed at him. They're like, yeah, that's like saying you haven't been to the gym in years, but you ran a 5K years ago.
Yeah.
It's not a good enough reason. And I feel like if the Pistons, wrong Detroit team, if the Lions continue to go downhill, Matt Patricia will probably be out before the season even ends.
Yeah, I think he might have one foot out the door already, but let's move on to our next coach. We got Adam Gase with the New York Jets.
He's already been a little bit at risk. Let's be honest. I feel like this might be his make it or break it year. They were already talking about maybe him possibly getting booted last year. I feel like if the Jets really do continue to go downhill as I expect them to, he will no longer be the head coach for the New York Jets.
I think that's a pretty good summary of how things are looking for the Jets. I don't really have anything to add. Just the Jets need to turn it around in order for some people to keep their job, and unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
I would agree.
Next, we got Dan Quinn, the coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
There was talk about him leaving last year. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that the defense wasn't taken care of. I believe that if the Falcons are going to have another losing record season, he will probably be out as well.
Yeah, especially because I feel like the Falcons have a lot of pieces there, and if they have a losing season, I feel like it just looks bad on him.
Yes, and I believe, but the difference between him and Gase and Patricia, though, is he won't go out until the end of the season. Like, they won't fire him mid-season. If things continue to go badly for the Lions and the Jets, I could see them firing Gase or Patricia mid-season.
All right. Let's move on to our next candidate, or not candidate, our next coach, which is Frank Reich? Reich? Ah, close. With the Indianapolis Colts, they got a new quarterback under center. They benched Jacoby Brissett because apparently he didn't do enough for them last season. They got Phillip Rivers coming in. Especially getting stunned by the Jaguars in the Week 1 opener, I would say things are looking pretty dicey in Indianapolis for him.
I feel like he's a situation similar to Frank Reich, similar to Dan Quinn. We're talking about Frank Reich right now, where if this season does not go well, if they're not really able to fix things with Phillip Rivers, let me just throw this out here, Shane. What do you think are the possibilities of Frank Reich gets canned at the end of the season? They bring in someone else. Also, Phillip Rivers retires, and they end up tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Do you see any possibility there with the Colts?
I would see Rivers retiring anytime soon. Other than Other than the
I
two
don't know.
interceptions he had last week, he honestly had a really good game outside those two interceptions. So if he plays a clean game, I think he's probably one of the better quarterbacks in the league right now. I don't see them tanking for Trevor, but I will say things are pretty dicey in Indianapolis considering all the offensive weapons they have.
So long story short, what it is they won't make the change with the players, but instead with the coach.
Yeah, pretty much. The way I see it, at least.
The next one on our list, we'll try and keep these last three pretty quick. Doug Peterson for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been there for a while. I could honestly see the Eagles making a change for him if they are not going to end up having a good season. I mean, I understand that they are still making the playoffs, but I feel like the Eagles are starting to digress a lot after their Super Bowl win over 2 years ago. That's just my opinion. And I feel like if that is going to happen, one of the things that's going to change first is their coach.
I can agree with you on that. It's going to be very interesting, especially because they really did win the Super Bowl not too long ago, and they have fallen pretty hard since then.
It just, well, I mean, it looks. How do I put this? Season after their Super Bowl win, they were really, really struggling. And then Nick Foles came in there, and he managed to get them into the playoffs. They beat the Bears because of the double doink, and then they lost to the Saints. So obviously it didn't go as far as they did the year before when they had Foles that got them to the Super Bowl win. And then the year after, this past year, they barely managed again to sneak into the playoffs by beating out a really terrible Cowboys team. And then they just basically get plowed over by the Seahawks, and Carson Wentz gets injured because the dude is made of glass. And now they're going into this season, and they're 0-1. They just lost the Washington football team.
They got a long season ahead of them. But
They do.
Enough about the Eagles. Let's talk about the Bears with Matt Nagy.
I think Matt Nagy's a little bit at risk. I think, and I brought this up earlier, so I don't think we should touch about it. I brought this up last week, but Nagy could get canned if he refuses to bring in Nick Foles if Mitchell Trubisky digresses. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I can see that happening. Honestly, I know you don't want to necessarily hear this. I think you guys might be in the running for the tanking for Trevor competition.
No, I don't believe it. I don't think
you'll get it, but I think you'll be low enough on the board where you can possibly trade a pick or two for that number one pick and get Lawrence.
I would agree. The only reason that I don't want to say that just yet, I could see that being a possibility if the Bears, let's say, for example, drop their next 3 games against teams that they could definitely beat. Then, yeah, that could totally happen.
Yep, but let's move on to our last coach. We got Mike Zimmer of the Minnesota Vikings.
There's been talk about, he's been there for a long time, and it may just be a thing where he may not return after a while because, the Vikings, they're not able to get very far. Yes, they made it to the NFC Championship against the Eagles a few years ago, but they got completely destroyed in that game. And since then, yes, they've had some luck, but it hasn't been enough to really carry them very far in the playoffs. And it makes me want to put Zimmer on this list as if the Vikings are thinking, well, we're getting there, but we're not quite there. Maybe it's time for one thing to change.
Yeah. If I honestly had to throw in just one more coach, I would say Doug Marrone of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is mainly just a do-or-die season for him.
I would agree with that, and I thought about that as we were going through this. I was like, well, Doug Marrone's name is not on this list, but it probably should be because of the exact reason that you named it. It's a do-or-die season. If they can't get anything done this year, regarding or whether or not they do end up being in the tanking for Trevor sweepstakes, it will result in Doug Marrone losing his job if they end up getting to that point.
Which is sad because a lot of players like him, think he's a good coach, which is why I'm like, I think it's okay that we leave him off for now, but I think if the season goes really, really bad, I think he might be gone.
I would agree with you. But yeah, that's our coaches on the line. These are the coaches. Just as a review, Matt Patricia for the Lions, Adam Gase for the Jets, Dan Quinn for the Falcons, Frank Reich for the Colts, Doug Peterson for the Eagles, Matt Nagy for the Bears, Mike Zimmer for the Vikings, and possibly Doug Marrone for the Jaguars. All names to keep in mind to see maybe if some of these coaches go mid-season or at the end of the season, depending on how their team performs.
Yep. And now we move on to our last topic for the night, which is our For the Fun Trivia Night. Trivia! So we each got three questions for each other that we are going to let everybody know of. I got mine pulled up. I have 2 true and false, and then just one. You just gotta know this one, because I didn't know this one, honestly.
And mine consist of a little bit of you gotta name them.
Oh,
I think in this case, Shane, because your whole thing is because we're doing this of best out of 3. If we get 1 out of 3 correct or 2 out of 3, and it's a little bit of a competition between the two of us of who gets the right. One of mine, because it's taking a couple of answers to get that in there. If you get most of them right, we'll count it. Does that make sense?
Sure. You just tell me if it counts or if it doesn't.
Okay, cool. And then, of course, obviously the one big rule, we obviously can't cheat. It's got to be an on-the-spot answer. We can't go looking up on our computers or on our phones or anything like that. We just got to name the answer.
Yeah, and I feel like we both might struggle with this because you got a baby, and my life is stressful as well, so my brain's a little fried. I don't know how fried your brain is.
I guess we'll go first. With me. Let's do your first question, and then I'll do mine.
Okay, so you want me to go first and give you the first question?
Go ahead.
Okay, true or false? Archie Manning and sons Peyton and Eli were all number 1 picks in the NFL draft.
Oh. Eli was. I'm pretty sure Peyton was. I feel like Archie was. True.
Incorrect.
Dang it!
Peyton and Eli were both number 1 selections. Archie was taken second.
Dang it. That's why I was thinking. I was like, I think Archie was. Dang it. All right.
Like I said, mine are like somewhat hard, but you got a 50-50 shot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mine, it's a little bit of naming things, but it's not super hard.
All right.
So, you want me
to Yep, let's go.
Okay, first question. Name the 2 quarterbacks that suffered gruesome leg injuries when playing for Washington.
I definitely know Alex Smith.
Yep, he's one of them. But you gotta name the other one.
I do not know the second one because he was pretty far before my time.
So you calling it quits?
I'm calling it quits. I definitely do not know the second one. I remember reading it because it was like the same injury and everything when Alex Smith got injured, but I do not know his name.
So the other one is Joe Theismann.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it rings a bell once I hear it, but I do not know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so Theismann had a really gruesome leg injury playing against the Giants, really busted up his leg. It just looked really bad. And then Alex Smith, obviously, he had his a few years ago against the Houston Texans.
Yeah. Alex Smith is back, though, which is all fun, but he's not starting, which kind of makes me sad because I really want to see him play again.
I agree.
All right. Your next question. True or false, the Baltimore Ravens were originally the Cleveland Browns.
That is true.
That is true.
That is true.
Congratulations. Yep. You got one right.
Yep, I got one right. I am 1 of 2 right now so far.
I'm like half.
All right. Here's your question. Now that the Rams have moved out of the LA Coliseum, the Coliseum is no longer the oldest football stadium currently used by the NFL. What is the oldest stadium currently used in the NFL?
Shoot. If I had to guess, I'm torn between 2. I'm torn between whatever the Browns Stadium is. I don't remember what it's called. And then the other one is Lambeau Field. But I'm going to go with the Browns Stadium. I don't know the name of it.
Wrong.
Oh, what is it?
It's neither of those.
Oh, okay.
It is Soldier Field in Chicago.
Oh, wow. You did that. Okay.
I mean, come on. Come on. It's a good question. It just happened to be that answer.
Oh yeah, I know. It is a good question. It's just really funny and ironic that that's the answer. Aren't the Chargers still playing in the Coliseum though?
Oh no, they were playing in like some soccer
Got
complex
it.
or something like that.
Cause
They're in SoFi Stadium now with the Rams.
okay, it's really weird they share a stadium, but okay.
Oh, the Jets and Giants do too. So
Yeah, well, we don't talk about those teams. We don't.
right.
They're not popular. Your last question. This is not true or false. How many years must a player be retired to be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Oh crap!
Yeah, this one was like the one I did not know, but I thought was just a really good question, and I wanted to have it in.
Oh, let me. Uh, um. All right, I have to take a shot in the dark here because I don't know for sure.
Okay.
It's 5.
You were right. It is 5.
Woo!
It is 5. So you got 2 out of 3, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'm thinking that it's really funny. You're gonna laugh at how I rationalize that, how I reason that out in my head. Is I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, how many years is it before you're eligible for the Hall of Fame in the NBA? And I was like, it's only technically like 4. I'm pretty sure it's like 4 in the NBA because Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan retired in 2016, and now they're both in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, I was like, oh, I think it's 5. I also thought, what's his name? I think it's like Ed Davis or something. No, Ed Reed. That's his name. Ed Reed.
Yep.
Played for the Ravens, and then now he's in the Hall of Fame. And I was like, oh, it's been like 5 years since he's done it. So, man, I'm happy with that result.
Yeah, 2 out of 3. Pretty good.
All right, your last question. This is the one where I'm like, if you get most of them right, I'll let you have the point. Can you name the 7 teams that have consecutively repeated as Super Bowl champions?
There were 7 teams that did back-to-back?
There are only 7 teams that have done back-to-back. Can you name all 7? And I'll give it to you if you can get most of them.
I would say the Patriots would be one. Man, this is like going so far back. Because there hasn't been a back-to-back winner in like 10 plus years.
Yeah, the last time was the Patriots in 04 and 05. You were correct on that one.
Which is, I'm like, they're the most recent, but
let's do it this way. I will give it to you. Like, if you can get all 7 and like without guessing 3 incorrect teams, then I'll give it to you.
Oh, that's not happening. That is so not happening. I think there's only like, I want to say, what is it, like 22 teams have won the Super Bowl altogether. Eagles just got their first. If I just had to throw a few names out, Vikings, Packers. I'll say there are 2 more.
Okay, so the Packers did. The Packers repeated in 67, the very first year of the Super Bowl, and in 68. The Vikings, though, remember, have never won a Super Bowl.
You're right.
That's one guess down.
Yeah.
You got 2 left.
It's hard to imagine the Vikings have never won because I always feel like the Vikings have just been good. Let's see here. Oh, it's like having to go back through so many different teams' history. You know, I'm doing a shot in the dark with this one. The Steelers, have they done it?
They've done it twice.
Okay, because I know Steelers are tied for the most Super Bowl wins, so I figured they were a pretty safe bet.
Steelers did it in 1975 and 1976, and in 1979 and 1980.
Okay.
Got 3 of them now.
I'm like trying to hop over to all these different teams and trying to think. It's like, is this person it? Is this person it? The 49ers, I feel like.
Niners did do it in 1989 and 1990.
Okay. Shoot, I'm trying to think of Dan Marino in his career.
Marino never got a ring.
Yeah, which is why I'm like, I don't think Marino got a ring, so that's gonna rule out the Dolphins for me. Uh, Broncos.
Broncos did do it in 1999 and oh no, 1998 and 99 with John Elway. So you got 5 now, dude. You need 2 more.
Yeah, I figured John Elway had done it.
Yep.
Oh gosh. I just need to look at the team names so I can just think of teams.
Yeah, man, you just need 2 more.
Here's the thing. I feel like there's one team on here that I'm just never gonna get, and I don't want to waste a guess on them just because I don't like them. I don't think they have. Have the Bears done it? I feel like the Bears might have done it at some point.
Is that are you
I'm
throwing
gonna
the
lock
Bears?
that one in.
You're throwing their name in?
I will throw the Bears' name, and I will, if needed, I will waste a guess on them.
The Bears have only won 1 Super Bowl in '86, so no, they have not done it. You got 1 more chance.
Man, the pressure. I've gotten 5 so far. That's more than I thought I would get originally. You know, here's the thing. It's just my thought is the NFC North has just been really strong, and their teams have been really good at different points in time. So I'm gonna say Detroit Lions kind of round out the NFC North.
Your final answer?
Yep, I figure it's wrong.
Yeah, dude, the Lions have never even been to the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. Hold on, I gotta know this one. Please tell me it wasn't the Cowboys.
The Cowboys repeated in '93 and '94.
Dang it, I was gonna say the Cowboys, and then that's the one I said I didn't want to say because I don't like them.
Yep, and then the other one, the 7th one that you didn't, the last one that you did not name, you actually named earlier.
I did?
The Miami Dolphins did it in '73 and '74 before Marino.
I knew Dolphins were good, and I knew Marino was there. I was like, but all I can remember about the Dolphins is the Marino time period, and I knew the Dolphins were really good around Marino time. Dang
Marino
it.
never won a ring.
Yeah. Stupid Cowboys. I blame the Cowboys on this. I hate the Cowboys. Like, I don't care enough about the Cowboys to pay attention to their history at that much.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, which is why they probably say we them boys, and they're going to the Super Bowl almost every single year.
All right. Oh, all right. So I guess I win.
You definitely win. You definitely win this week.
And then, yeah, that is for the fans this week.
Yeah. Tune in next week. Are we gonna be doing it on next Tuesday or next Saturday? So
It would be Saturday.
The 26th.
Unfortunately, it looks like by the next time we meet, there will be 1 game down already.
Hey, and it's the Jaguars versus the Dolphins.
All right. Well, hopefully the Jags win then.
And we can message each other and see who we think is going to win that game. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm thinking the Jaguars are going to win. I don't have an exact score, but I think the Jazz are going to take it.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Cool. So there we go. You got a bonus prediction, just no score for that game.
There we go. All right.
All right, everyone. It's been real fun. We will catch you on Saturday, the 26th, probably in the afternoon-ish. We will send updates of when we're going live, and I will update the channel with that information.
Sounds great.
All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care. Have a good night.